Alright, I'm gonna try something new today. I don't know what I'm doing. I've just been prodded from within my heart recently to step outside my comfort zone. So here I am going to share some of the teachings of my spiritual master, Mother Rytasha, and give freely what was given freely unto me. So let's see how this goes. All glories to Mother Rytasha, all glories to the religion of love, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the Supreme Lord. O Lord God, please help us live out these teachings and be an example in the world. Jai. So what kind of spurred this idea of making this, which I originally wanted to just make an audio file and just post it, but I kept getting prodded, nope, you need to go out even further outside your comfort zone and really share. My wife is here with me. She is comfortably in her comfort zone behind the camera. She's getting no such prod to share like I am. What kind of spurred this is the other day I was talking with one of my gaming buddies in Australia. Really cool dude, and he was telling me when he was a kid, his terrible experiences he had, in his church, in his religion, and because of some really shady characters that were in that church. One guy in particular, and it just felt so awful that he had to deal with such a terrible experience like that. And then the other day, when I was like doing dishes or something, and I noticed something underneath our new pan. So my wife and I's pan broke some weeks back or months back. Time flies, and we needed a new pan. I wanted to maybe get one of those new Hexclad pans. You guys seen those commercials or seen it online? The Hexclad, that was that Gordon Ramsay guy. It looked like a cool pan. Like, oh, all right, but it's so expensive. So we got a knockoff online. I call it the Haxclad. So I got a Haxclad pan that works, less than half the cost. And then there was engraved on the back of it, I don't know, it was like there was like some numbers and letters, and it said Sus 316. Sus 316. And I was like, that's odd, but then it made me think like, Sus 316. Maybe I'll post a picture of that. And that's what it said underneath it, like it was a model number. But there is something sus going on in religion, It's not as it all should be, right? Otherwise, why isn't there so much peace and love in the world? Why is there so much hate and animosity? I mean, if every prophet, every servant of God comes in love and peace, then where's all that love and peace? Because everyone's pretty much fighting each other and making a mockery of what God has given and doing all sorts of perverted, shady, shisty stuff in the name of God. And it's pretty much burnt me out on religious stuff, and religious or spiritual people. I mean, I know when I was a kid, I didn't really have much religious influences, but those who were around me, I thought half of what they said was full of BS. It was like they were making this stuff up as they went along, and then eventually they have a little treasure trove of made-up ad-libs, like ready to go at their disposal, that they remember that they made up on the fly and said, yeah, that's a good one, I'll use this at this time, or use the made-up stuff made by someone else. But that's what it always felt like, So Sus 316 came in my mind, and I was like thinking, well, maybe it's time I shared some of the things I learned from my spiritual master, because I had the blessed opportunity to learn from a pure devotee of God. And she was the real thing. Like the real thing. Not some charlatan, not someone trying to be popular, get followers, or try and be rich, or have prestige or notoriety or influence or land, control, which is pretty much what all religions do. Though they preach brotherhood, in reality they are separating brother from brother, creating all these walls and divisions that God didn't create, teaching a bunch of doctrines that God didn't give, coming up with all these interpretations of the scriptures that are absolutely ludicrous and are leading us down, spiraling into hell, pretty much. Because most leaders, if not all leaders in religion, are just misleaders. And I don't want to sound so negative. My darling wife says, "Oh, you're sometimes so negative." And yeah, sometimes I am a little negative. I am a little pessimistic because I grew up surrounded by a bunch of fake. Like, who did I have for guidance? Like, my parents didn't know what the heck they're doing. My teachers didn't know what the heck they're doing. Politicians don't know what the heck they're doing. Definitely people in the churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, they didn't really know what they're doing. Everyone just seems like they're all just like the same. Like, nobody, I didn't really grow up with religion so much. My pops was from Iran, grew up Muslim, so by default, I guess, Muslim. And then my mom, Christian family background, Baptist, I guess, but she's not really religious. I think she's pretty much atheist. So, and my family, we celebrated Christmas and Easter and opened presents, and my dad did Ramadan for a while, and we just don't eat pork in the house, and that was basically it. Don't eat pork. A regular family, what did I know about spirituality? But thing is, I kind of got to questioning things when I was at an early age, because early deaths in the family, like two of my uncles died, when I was a child. One when I was really young, and one when I was I think in 6th grade or something, or 7th grade. 6th grade, yeah. But I remember when I was a young kid, I was just thinking wow, they died. What happened to them? Where did they go? They're just 6 feet under, in darkness forever. It sounded so bleak. I was freaking out as a kid. I was having anxiety and crying all night. I'm like, oh, this can't be. What's the whole point? We're just going to end up in the dirt. What's the whole point of life? It's going to end up in the dirt forever in darkness. This is my thoughts as a kid. I think I was maybe 8 years old at the time. No one had answers for me. Oh, if you're a good person, you go to heaven. If you're a bad person, you go to hell. If you're like my mom, you're don't even think about it. They're not the right person to ask. Someone doesn't even ponder these questions themselves. So I started looking around for some answers. I was yearning to know what is the absolute truth? Where do we go when we die? Where were we before we were born? What's the whole purpose of this life? Who are we? And who or what is God? I didn't know this stuff as a kid, and everybody kind of had different answers around me, but I was looking into Christian stuff, and I went to churches, and I read some books The Imitation of Christ and the Bible, but no one I met in the church had that humility of a Saint Francis of Assisi. That pure expression of love of God and that selfless giving. I didn't really see much purity like that on that level. I was and Islam, I don't know much about Islam, to be honest, except for my father and reading Sufi poetry. And I tell you, where is all that heartfelt expression of ecstatic love of God and devotion of the Sufi saints and poets of old? Where's that at? I didn't meet anybody like that. And then I got into Native American religion, spirituality, all that interesting stuff. And I went to real ceremonies, actual ceremonies with really wonderful people. and learned quite a bit. But still, it's like everywhere I go, every book I read, really big on reading the Dalai Lama's teachings too. His books were really nice. He seems such a sweetheart. I like the Dalai Lama a lot. Anyways, the point I'm trying to say is I was looking at all these different places, but it seemed like no one had that exemplary, like Zen, like the Buddha, or that ecstatic love and devotion, like the Sufi poets, or that humility and grace and renunciation of these great saints that I read about in all these books. I remember when I was a kid, I think I was like Discovery Channel, his channel, I was watching there was like some documentary of the Buddha on it. And I think I was like imagining to myself, it seems so peaceful. He's just there and just smiling and nothing can bother him. He's just zenned out in this higher state of unconsciousness, enlightenment. And I thought, that sounds kind of cool, enlightenment. Especially, when everything around me kind of sucked. I figured, that sounds nice. That no matter what's going on around you, no matter you got family fighting nonstop, you got kids being bullies and causing all sorts of havoc. You got racist teachers, and you got, all sorts of terrible shit on the news. Sorry. Pardon my French. Anyways, so it was kind of bleak. I didn't have the best of childhoods, I grew up on a street. It was the one little tract of homes, surrounded on one side by a sprawl of short, single-level, slummy unit apartments, and then on the other side was like duplex, slummy apartments, and then train tracks, and then it's all unincorporated Anaheim. It's not even like officially taken care of by any one city. All the other cities around it kind of foot the bill, Unincorporated Anaheim. I grew up. Went to school in Garden Grove. Oh my God, the racism, the meth, the gangs, the fights in school. I couldn't wait till high school was over, I tell you. And I couldn't wait to find out, what are the real answers to all these questions I'm looking for? And everywhere I am, I ain't got no answers. Ain't nobody around me who's a good role model that I really look up to, who's got all these wonderful qualities of these great saints and sages and prophets and sons of gods that I read about, where is that truth? I'm getting an aroma, a whiff. I got a little whiff, a fart of truth over here, it sounds good, but then this says this, and then that says that, and then it's it gets confusing, what is the absolute truth, It boggled my mind. And then I had the good fortune to meet somebody who was the living truth. And that is how I've come to learn is how you actually hear truth. You meet somebody who is the living truth, who is a pure devotee of God, whose entire life is loving devotional service, a genuine spiritual master. And I know what most of y'all are thinking. Probably the first thing I was thinking, spiritual master, a guru, joining a cult, That's the first thing I thought. When I first even heard about I didn't know who, she was in the beginning. Her name was Mother Rytasha, and I knew about her because of all the charity work she was doing. Because at the time when I was the Hacky Sack Club president at OCC, one of my homies who had the World Religions Club, I played Hacky Sack with in the quad, and I really wanted to do some good charity work. That was my heart's desire. I wanted to make a difference in life. I wanted to do good, I was actually on a totally different track in life, and here I guess I'm sharing a little bit about my own personal self, because I guess if you understand who I am, you'll understand a little bit more where I'm coming from. So I had issues with my dad, and we didn't always see eye to eye. He wasn't the best dad. In fact, he wasn't a good dad at all. And we argued a lot. Everyone in the family argued, And even to this day, I don't even talk with my father. Yeah, it's true. It's crazy. But anyways, why did I bring that up? Daddy issues? When am I bringing that up? What's the purpose of that? My mind taking me this way and that way. And I lost my train of thought. That happens. But anyways, where I'm coming from. I was going to school OCC. Okay, that's what I meant to say. Okay, so because of this bad relationship with my father, everything that related to my father, I kind of took also as bad, including his Middle Eastern heritage. So you can imagine growing up in the States, and Middle Easterns are the bad guys, right? And in my life, since I was at so much odds and with my father, that my father was the bad guy, and so everything he represented was also a bad guy. So I was into that same mentality, and I was of the mind when I was 16 to join the Marines after high school, go into Special Forces. My goal was to become a recon sniper and officer training. That was my plan, and go to the Middle East and kill Middle Eastern people. That literally was my goal when I was a kid. Yeah. Well, I mean, a little bit of self-hate there. All the discrimination and racism I had to deal with just because of my name. Hassan Ali Mazahedi. I just call myself Hassan. But again, identity issues, all that bullshit I grew up with. So I ended up going by Hank most of the time when I was in high school. Most people call me Hank. Way easier on the football team, let me tell you. Going by Hank than Hassan. Hey, it's the reality, and growing up in the States. So, by the causeless mercy of God, that's all I can say. That's all I can say. I can no other reason to explain it, but something happened to me when I was 16. I had an experience, and it kind of altered my course in life. And from that point on, I didn't want to destroy. I wanted to build. I wanted to help. So I had a desire sincerely to do good, and I started doing a lot of charity work and volunteer work and this and that. And that's how I found out about Mother Rytasha, because I was kind of disenfranchised by all of the big NGOs and giant nonprofits and charities like UNICEF and this and that. But my goodness, like those UNICEF pamphlets, like this poor kid on there, nice programs we do, but like every dollar you give them, like maybe only 11 cents goes to a program that actually helps that kid on the pamphlet. There's so much overhead, there's big salaries to pay out for all them CEOs and board members, and they ride around in like luxury SUVs in third world countries. And I know this because when I was serving under Mother Rytasha, we were on like rickety little bicycle carts pulled by this old smiling dark-skinned Bengali man with like medical supplies going to a night camp, and then zooming by are like the nicest cars in the country. These like air-conditioned AC SUVs. That was UNICEF going by, in all their suits and looking sharp, and then going off, and then where are they going? Mother Rytasha is just like in the trenches with the people, serving them, selflessly for years. And then when I found out that when you donated $1 to her nonprofit, the Servants of Charity Food Relief International, that was 100 cents that went to that project for that kid or for that iCamp, for that school. Like it all went there, because everybody in the nonprofit was a volunteer, including the CEO and the president, Mother Rytasha. She told me later that people told her charity is a business. And she said, what? Charity is not a business. Charity is charity. And she did it. She did charity. Real charity. Selfless. Love. Not with anything in return. Not wanting anything back. And that's what shook me with her. You see, in my mind, every spiritual or religious personality was always bogus until proven bona fide. And it may be a little pessimistic, but I mean, where do you ever find someone real? And when I saw her picture. And I read the book. When I read a book she had, and it was amazing to me. But when I saw a picture, I was like, another phony guru. And what's my buddy? Calling her master? Like, who's this lady calling my buddy, calling herself master? I was like, I had all this negative stuff in my mind. I already judged her before we even met. I thought it was cool, it's charity work and all that, but I was like, yeah, I'm not down for all this religious, spiritual stuff, man. I want to know all the questions to life, but, who can you trust, really? And I tell you, when I was in her presence, the very first time, when I walked, when my buddy introduced me to her, it was at a park under like a gazebo or something, at some like World Unity Festival in Irvine, of all places. She was just there chilling on, with Rajak. And I walked up into her presence, and I had all my mind. I was like, yeah, let me go see what this guru's all about, and find something that I can, tell my bro that, hey, you see this, like you should kind of like get under her yoke, bro, But when I was in her presence, I kid you not, it was like, like I walked into a force field, and all of my doubts just went whoosh right out my mind, and my heart felt this reverence that I never felt before in my life for anybody. And it was like this whole, like, and everything about her was just so gentle, so calm, so real, so pure, so much love. And she was very kind. She was very, courteous, and she was a nice lady. She was very sweet, and she spoke a few words. And I said hello, introduced myself, and I was kind too. I was like, okay, hi, nice to meet you. Yeah, okay. And they invited me to a class, and someday. I'm like, okay, well, that sounds nice. All right, thank you. Yeah, I'll go to that. Sure. Bye bye. And it was a nice, sweet interaction. And then I left the presence, went back to my car, and then all my thoughts came back like, oh, she's so fake. she's another fraud. All my doubts came back again. But then I went to that class they invited me to. Just a few people sitting around some little campfire thingy at some back of some like bougie camping outfitting store in Costa Mesa, and the camp off Bristol and Bear. And same thing happened. I was in her presence, and whoosh, like all my doubts, all my preconceived judgments just kind of like went out the door. Which is shocking to me, and because I'd never experienced that before, but it happened twice in a row. I thought the first time was a fluke. And I heard her actually speak. And when she spoke on giving spiritual knowledge, it was the most clear thing I've ever heard. Everything she said made absolute sense. And it was like logical, practical, actual examples from the scriptures, just sharing it as it was purely. I was like, wow, like that is like shining a light inside my heart. Like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. I remember asking her a couple questions, and it just blew my mind, the answer she gave me. It just even flipped the questions around on me, and then like pulled the answers out of my own heart. Like she just turned the light bulb on. Like, it makes so much sense. And then I started to, try to hear a little more. Time would go on, and I eventually would ask for initiation, and then my life would change forever, and I'd surrender my life unto God, and and thus I've been a preacher and servant of charity for 17 years now. But the thing is, I realize that, yes, a spiritual master is a real thing. And there's real ones and there's fake ones. And most are fake. And you got to know the difference. Now, we don't grow up in any culture, at least in the West, that appreciates or even understands the relationship of a disciple and master, because we're all gung-ho on like, you got to be independent, you got to be the top dog, and being a servant. Who wants to be a servant? That's going down. That's not progress in life. You're going downhill if now you're becoming a lowly servant. We think we should be a master. We should be the top dog in this dog-eat-dog world, and everyone's clamoring after that. But I come to find out that an actual, real spiritual master does not come to be served. They come to serve. And there's qualifications of a real spiritual master, and there are 4. 1, they come in disciplic succession, meaning they were taught by a master who was taught by a master who was taught by a master taught by a master, in an unbroken lineage going all the way back to God. This unbroken lineage of one devotee of the Lord, whose whole life is the living message. They don't just talk the talk, but they walk the walk. And that's the second qualification of a spiritual master, is they give only the message of God without change or alteration. No spin, no twist, no little new philosophy, no special isms. They don't add anything. They just give it just like a postman delivers a letter. Like, here you go. No change to it. And they live the message they speak. They don't do this do as I say, not as I do nonsense, which I had plenty of teachers like that growing up, mind you. Which, always made me quite the rebellious one, because I always thought they were all full of it. And so I was, I was a pretty rebellious punk kid from SoCal with a chip on his block. That somehow I got the dumb luck, or by the mercy of God, that I got to somehow be in the company of an actual, real, living saint. Like a Saint Francis of Assisi, like a Maulana Rumi, like an actual, holy, holy, holy person, like the real thing. And the third qualification, and this is the one that, this one was obvious to me from the get-go, and I realized, wow, this is actually kind of rare, is that she neither needed nor wanted anything material from anyone, any of her followers, any disciples, nothing. Just giving. They're just completely dependent on God. She never asked for payment. She never said you have to, charge money for classes. She never, I asked her for initiation if I could become her disciple. She never asked. She didn't want followers. That's selfless giving. Just giving, just for the pleasure of God, for serving God and the servants of God, for wanting nothing in return, especially nothing material. And the fourth qualification of a real spiritual master is they have to be alive, meaning you can't just have some picture of somebody that died a long time ago. It's like, okay, this guy, he was a great guru back then, he's my guru now. No, there's got to be someone alive, someone who can actually answer your questions, because that's the actual relationship, is one of questions and answers, and of submissive service. Because I learned that real spiritual knowledge, real truth, you can't realize it from a book. You can't be told what it is. You can't go out and acquire it or get it or earn it. No. Just like you can't know God, you can't understand God by your mental faculties, although many philosophers and great thinkers have tried. But you can't. It's beyond the mind. The spiritual is beyond the material mind. But you can love. You can love God. And it's in love and the devotional service of the Lord, and in serving a servant of God, do you learn how to reclaim or reawaken to your natural eternal state, which is, well, who we really are. I've come to learn is we're not these bodies. No. We're not these meat puppets moving around. We're the spirit soul inside that's eternal. And where does the spirit soul, the real us, come from? Well, this and many questions I had for Mother Rytasha, and my goodness, I would love to share those answers. But I realized, whoop, my goodness, it's already been half an hour. I've been talking. Woof. And Mother Rytasha taught me, you set a time, you stick to that time. So this is the first time I'm going to share something. I'm going to end it on timely manner. which I didn't actually share anything yet. I'm just giving you guys a prequel of like who I am and where I've came to approach an actual spiritual master. This punk kid from Garden Grove, no good qualities. I drank, I did drugs, I was kind of violent, I got in fights, you know, I got into trouble. But I also had a good head on me, you know. I was smart in school, and I had lots of scholarships and stuff, and you know, and I was really curious. I loved to learn. I wanted to know things. So somehow, by my desire to know what was the absolute truth in life, well, I came later to learn that it is by our desires we decide our destiny. And God made a meeting with one who was the actual living message of God, who lived that truth and could impart real knowledge unto me, because it was fully realized and awakened from within her heart through the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And my goodness, I can't wait to share more if anybody's interested to hear more about Mother Rytasha, who she was, because I you know, most people didn't know who she was. No one knew who she was. She had very few disciples. Well, I guess there was a lot of initiates, but very few really. And she stayed out of the limelight. She avoided journalists. She avoided interviewers. You know, she's had offers to people want to write a book about her, do a documentary about her, do a piece about her. One person said, I could get you on Oprah. And she was like, I ain't got time for that. Like, unless you want to, if you want to hear the message, I'm here to share. But I don't want to talk about myself. I'm not some fluff piece for your thing. I'm just here to serve God. You know, and she stayed out of the limelight. She stayed on the DL and just kept serving the poorest of the poor. I mean, she lived out of a suitcase and just traveled around and just gave. You know, she was the real, actual thing. Wow, like an actual saint. I mean, everyone knows about Mother Teresa. You know, Mother Rytasha and Mother Teresa were actually good friends. Mother Rytasha was on the other side of the border in Bangladesh. And Teresa was, you know, in Calcutta, where she became famous. But they were very close, and actually Mother Teresa wrote the foreword to one of the books Mother Rytasha published for fundraising for the charity. Oh, that's the only time she ever asked for anything. It was when she would fundraise for the nonprofit on behalf of all the charity programs, but never for herself. So she would beg alms for the benefit to help others, but never for herself. Again, the selfless humility of this actual saintly person. Wow. You know, I got real lucky. Like, who am I, you know, that I ended up in someone's company like this, and I got to serve with her for many years, and boy, did I learn a lot. Wow. Mind-blowing stuff. Truth, all true stuff, amazing stuff. I mean, it's been guiding my life well for a long time now, and I want to share this with y'all, if y'all would humbly allow me to offer this service. And Sus 316, I'll leave you with something that Mother Rytasha taught me and what other God brothers and sisters at the time. You see, the translations of the Abrahamical religions, the scriptures, the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, they've kind of been, you know, they've kind of been through the ringer by the hands of men who have poorly translated, intentionally mistranslated, omitted, or added lots of other additions unsanctioned by God. And the import or true meaning of the scriptures can be quite confusing to the layman, especially when these mistranslations and omissions and changes, coupled with the interpretations of all these people who actually do not live like the prophets whose teachings they profess to preach, professing ideals they themselves could not be. We get quite confused. And John 3:16, the Lord loved the world so much he begot his only son. He gave his only begotten son. I don't know I'm not that good at memorizing things like the scriptures. Yeah, God so loved the world, he sent his only begotten son. That's it, right? Yeah. There's a mistranslation there, you see. They added something. They added the word only. His only begotten son. You see, Jesus, he said, by my acts you shall know who I am. Acts that are of my Father. Because I am serving, my Father. I'm serving God. By this he's a son of God. And he said, and if I'm not doing such things, then you may know me not as a son of God. And the thing about adding only to it is it makes it sound like he is only God's son. He is the only prophet meant to guide the world. He is God, and this is the only way, and therefore if you do not do as we say, you'll go to hell. And that's, you see where this is going here? By saying we're only? I mean, anybody who does the will of God, as Jesus did, who was a pure devotee of the Lord, a pure son of God, straight, immaculate conception. From birth, he was self-realized and on a mission to serve the Lord. But he was not the only son of God, because every spirit soul is a child of God. We're all sons, we're all daughters of God, every single one of us. Jesus, however, knew that and was acting like it. And anybody who acts like who they really are as an eternal servitor of the Lord can also be called a son of God. And see, that's what was kind of contention back in the day too. Like the Jews at the time say, "Oh, you say you're a son of God," da 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 da, and they got all blah 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 about it, But it's like, yeah, I'm a son of God, of course. You are too if you quit acting like a fool, basically. I don't know if Jesus would have said that. But Jesus was very merciful and loving. But only, see, to say only, it makes it seem like you have a monopoly on the truth. And if you have a monopoly on the truth, that only your religion is right, only your prophet is one who is the son of God. See, all the other prophets, and them, they weren't sons of God. See, Jesus was the only one, you see. Or even that saying in John 10:30, I and the Father are one. Ooh. Christians take that one line and make that to be their banner, that, you see that, I and the Father are one, Jesus is God. And since our Jesus is God himself, that means all the other religions and faith are wrong. And therefore, if you're not Christian with us and you don't obey the Catholic Church, then you're all going to hell. You're all damned. And that's been the rhetoric lately, since the church started. Because worldly men take the pure message God gave and they twist it, they interpret, they make it more convenient for them, they make it profitable for them. In the name of God, every horror known to man has been done. In the name of God. Well, it's a mistranslation from the Greek. You see, the word that's saying I and the Father are one. Well, it's more like I and the Father are of one mind or of one consciousness. It's kind of like in the original Greek, the mood it was given. Kind of like, a team, a sports team. Like they all have the same goal to win together. Like they are all one. We say we are all united. We are one. But they're not all one. They're all individual players. But of the will, their desire, they are one. They are of the same mind, of the same consciousness. And this is what Jesus was saying. When he says I and the Father are one, he's saying I and the Father are of one consciousness or of one will. Meaning, as he says, let my will be thy will. Let thy will be my will. See, let me bind myself to thee, two as one, soul surrendered unto thee. Thy will alone, O Lord, be done. That one I remember. Thy will alone, O Lord, be done. So Jesus' will was completely aligned with the Lord's will, because he served not himself, but he served the Lord, including things that were very, very uncomfortable for Jesus. I mean, pure self-realized soul, even he got cold feet at the last moment, because he knew it was pretty heavy what was going to happen. But it was God's will. And so he says, yeah, thy will, O Lord, be done, not my will. That is what a devotee of God does. A devotee of God, a true devotee of God, just serves the Lord without any change or alteration. Jesus spoke nothing new that hasn't been heard before. It says in Ecclesiastes, there is nothing new under the sun. All in great love has been given again and again and again. It's all been given. That's why it's called religion. Again, religio. Re, again, legio, to link. Religio means to re-link again with the divine. It's not an organization, it's not a book, it's a process in the heart, coming surrendered again in love of God. And experiencing our true eternal nature, which is full of bliss and full of knowledge. Which is what that enlightenment is, or that higher consciousness that the great saints and sages had, and the great elation of the Sufi poets, their ecstatic, drunken madness in love of God. Divani. That is just their original spiritual consciousness breaking through the filter of this mind. But hey, backtrack a little bit. So, what is the benefit of saying I and the Father are one, and meaning to believe that Jesus is God, even though he says, I am the Son of God? This is how you should pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Our Father, as Jesus is saying. His relationship with God is his Son and Father. He worships and serves the Lord as a dutiful son. He doesn't say, our Father who is also me, No, our Father who art in heaven. To say that only Jesus was the true Messiah, that all other scriptures, all other prophets, all other religions are untrue, and only this is right, only we have the truth, only this is the way, all other ways are wrong, trying to negate God's gift that he gave again and again in your own hubris and arrogance and foolishness. We think to separate God's... every time the message is given, whether given through Moses, given through Abraham, given through the great prophets like Daniel and Isaiah and Elijah, or through the prophet Muhammad, through Jesus, through Buddha, it's always given purely in love. And they don't put a label on it, okay? God never puts a label on it. Let me make that clear. God never put a label on it. Christianity, Islam doesn't even mean what you think it means. It means surrender unto the will of God. It's a verb, it's an action, something you do with your life. Anyways, Sus 3:16, John 10:30. When you have this interpretation, this misinterpretation, you tweak a little something, tweak the truth. You think you're doing good. Yeah, I'm going to, convert all these heathens to Jesus. They're all pagans anyways. That's the mentality of the early missionaries and conquistadors. Didn't the Catholic Church pass a papal bull that pretty much gave free license to all the explorers of the New World and the Americas to do whatever they wished with the people if they weren't Christian, including, steal their land, rape their women, murder them, enslave them. That was pretty much how it was interpreted by this doctrine given by the Pope, and they ran with it, and thus slavery was free game. Ooh. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, the God didn't do that one. That was man again, messing things up in his own ignorance. So this is, I want to make that clear, that this is an offense to the Lord to decry or defame or to discredit any of his servants, any of his holy books. And even though the books have been mistranslated here and there, and things have been taken out, you see, God is still cleverer than these shysters. He can still guide us within our hearts. There's still enough of the truth in all of those Abrahamitical scriptures that each and every one of them is good enough to get you back home to God if you had a proper spiritual master who could guide you through the proper understanding of what is the true import of those scriptures and how to actually serve God and please God. Because that's actually the whole point of the scriptures. All the do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, you know, all these teachings, all this knowledge is actually for our benefit, because it's all guiding us on how to live our lives perfectly in a manner pleasing to God. And that's the whole point, pleasing God. Like a dutiful son wanting to please his benevolent and merciful and so kind and loving Father, who's provided everything for us. Like Jesus just wanted to just serve his Father no matter what his Father asked of him, even having to do a hard task that he didn't want to do. See, it wasn't about doing what felt good to Jesus, it was doing what was right and what was needed to be done. And a real spiritual master, like a Mother Rytasha, like a Jesus, like a many that came before, who are in the proper disciple succession, they can impart real knowledge. And I got real lucky that I got to be around someone like that. So, I don't know if this is going to be a regular thing. This might just be a one-off. I mean, I'm a talking head in front of a camera, and I think talking head videos are boring and dumb. It's the truth, I do. This is like, I don't even like the sound of my voice, you know. I really don't. This is way out of my comfort zone. But even Jesus said, as you have received, freely have you received, now freely must you give. So, just sharing this love. And I still am way over time. In fact, there's so much more I want to tell you guys. But I guess little by little, you know. Always leaves them wanting more, right? But I would love to take questions, but I haven't figured out how to do this live yet. For the future, you know, I'm still quite a noob at this. I don't even know what I'm doing. Just winging it. I'll tell you one last story, I'll end to that. So, this reminds me of that. So we were in Benares at our center, maybe like a dozen years ago, Benares, India. And Mother Tasha was invited, I think from some local dude, to give a spiritual talk in Sarnath. So we went to Sarnath. It's like maybe 30, 40 minutes outside of Benares. And it's a holy place for Buddhist pilgrims, because it is there where the Buddha, the Enlightened One, gave his first class to his first 5 disciples. And if you go there, there's many temples from all around the world there, of different Buddhist temples. Each temple from each country has its own architectures, you know. And when we got there, we couldn't find the guy that organized the program. And we were just lost. I don't even know where we were. We just pulled over this car we rented for the day, and Rajak is busy off trying to find this guy and calling around like, where is this dude? And then like me and some other God brothers were just like, oh, this is a bummer, you know, like we didn't show up, they're probably looking for us, and then we're just lost here, oh no, you know. I thought it was all bummed out. And then Mother Rytasha, she's just chilling. She's just chilling with a smile on her face, just, you know, undisturbed at all, you know. And eventually she just says, oh, we're just winging it. And then she turns back and goes, like angels. And then a big old cheeky smile on her face, and she's like well pleased with her joke, and hee, and she's laughing. She goes off, and she was so sweet and totally undisturbed. And that's what I'm doing. I'm winging this, seeing how it goes. So she was quite amazing, and I bet you never heard things that I can share with y'all coming soon, if this keeps becoming a thing. And hopefully I'll do this, you know, in like sunrise or sunset where there's like nice lighting where you can see like, you know, nice nature all around instead of like this Silverado back here, which is pretty ghetto. But hey, you know, be real, which is all I can be. Anyways, so I'll stop the class and there. My love, do you have any questions or comments?
No, it was beautiful. You told me about Mother Rytasha many times, and anytime you are saying, maybe repeating the same story, I learned something new about her, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah, that is the nature of spiritual knowledge, I've come to find out. And that's what she told me too. She said anything like spiritual knowledge or anything in scripture, spiritual knowledge is eternal. It's living. It's not just some mundane knowledge that you can just, you know, you read a book once and you're bored, and you watch this movie once and you're bored of it, you know, you don't need to watch again, you know, and if you watch it a second or third time, you get bored of it, unless it's a really good movie or a really good book, right? But spiritual knowledge, you know, scripture, for example, it never gets old, because the more, especially if you're progressing in spiritual life, the more you purify your own heart, the more your true consciousness gets slowly and slowly more revealed, and you're able to hear more knowledge. You are transformed, you are changed, so that when you can read the same book, you know, over and over again your whole life and still get new meaning, new understanding, new depths and experiences from it, and so many more aha moments. You know, it just keeps happening and growing as you keep purifying and transforming back to your original state of love. So this knowledge that you're exposed to, and even no matter how many times you read it, it will never get stale. Because it's eternal, it's alive, and it's of the same nature of us, the same eternal spiritual nature. You know. Anyways. Any more questions, love, or comments?
No, and it's very fascinating for me that learning more about different religion. We always, at least me, I always thought that spirituality is just related to the one religion, and which is mostly, I thought that it's just coming from India. But any teaching coming from India, that's the pure spirituality and knowledge. But later on, I found out that all the religions are good because they're all coming from one God, and they just came from different time, but the message is same, and that's love of God.
Yeah, there's something I learned that made a lot of sense that Mother Rytasha taught. And she said that with all the great religions given by God, there was always an inner teaching and an outer teaching. The inner teaching, oh, I forgot I was filming. I thought the camera was even here. I thought it was just me and you for a second. I was moving this. Okay, I forgot I was being filmed. Okay, so what was I saying now?
The thing
I'm a noob.
The thing that you learn, there is outer teaching and inner teaching.
Ah, yes, that's right. Thank you, my love.
Yeah.
So in religion, there is an inner teaching and an outer teaching. The outer teaching of religion is given according to custom, culture, time, and language. And on the surface, it appears different. You know, if I, like, for example, me talking to some people back in the hood where I grew up, I'm going to talk with them a lot different than if I'm with a bunch of, like, you know, elderly people at some function, like, oh, nice to meet you. Hey, how you guys doing? I mean, I'm not going to be like, yo, what up? You know, I'm not going to talk to some old biddies like that, you know, I'm also, you know how to relate to some people. And that's kind of how the message is given. It's given to a different language, different people. It sounds different, you know, explaining to a bunch of dispersed nomadic Arabs who have their culture and their way of thinking in Arabic versus, you know, talking to an enslaved, you know, people, Hebrew descendants of Abraham, you know, in the deserts of Egypt. You know, like, people, they think a little differently, and therefore you explain things differently. You know, that's why the Torah, there's so much, you know, rules and I mean, gosh, laws, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. You know, it's like because, you know, that's what they were used to. You know, I mean, they're always told you know, by Pharaoh. So So that's how they understood things. It's a way of, understanding things. And then, you translate things into Greek, for example, from Aramaic or Hebrew to Greek. And the Greek have a totally different way of thinking, so you translate into that language now. But anyways, these outer teachings of religion, they're temporary. They're not for all time. They're just for that time. Okay? They're not good for all time. Because it's just to relate to those people at that time what they needed to hear and how they could understand it. Because speak to the level of the listener. Know your audience. But there's the internal teaching of religion. That same one inner message that is non-different. And in every scripture, in every religion taught by every prophet, master, saint, guru, son of God, even God himself. It's the same one eternal message of love of God. So that inner message, yes, that is all one. And the wise can know the difference. That's just the outer teaching, this is the inner teaching, And you can see the commonality of that inner teaching, which shows you that really there only ever has been one religion. Ever. And it's always been love. Love of God. Different religions is a myth. It's a man-made myth. It's an illusion. God did not divide. God did not make these borders. God did not, make these sects and make all these buildings and organizations. Man did that. You think there was any instructions to build the Catholic Church as it is today within the Bible? No. No. The man came up with all this stuff. In fact, today they teach more from their own books, their own doctrines, their own interpretations than they do from the actual Bible. It's crazy. The inner teaching is one, just as God is one. And the wise know the difference that there was, different flavors and different spices throughout time. But you know what? Hey, variety is the spice of life. If it was just, you'll all have to pray this in this style and all cook your food this way, it'd be kind of boring, right? I like Taco Tuesday. I want pizza on Fridays. I want variety. I don't mind. I don't mind reading a little Quran here, reading a little Bhagavad Gita there, I don't mind it. It's all good, mix it up a bit, because it's all meant to bring us back to Him in love. That's the whole point of every single one of those scriptures, is to bring us back to love. And if you don't have that love of God and the kindness to others which proves that love, though you may be proficient upon the path, speaking much about religion and thinking yourself so holy and religious and da-da-da-da-da. But if you develop not love and the kindness to others, which proves that love, you'll be walking in the opposite direction away from God. And that's what most religious leaders do. They walk in the wrong direction. They got a wrong idea in their head, and they're not directing themselves towards selfless loving surrender there. There's some other things mixed in there, some shiesty things, which unfortunately my gaming buddy had to experience as a kid. Unfortunately, what many of us have to experience, all the fake, all the bullshit, all the illusion, all the... Oh, sorry, my French again. I'm tired of all the fake. We want something real, right? Well, I thank the Lord that I finally got something real when I met Mother Rytasha, and she imparted unto me real knowledge, and I have been following the regulated principles all my life, the rules of a disciple, all my spiritual life. And daily do I hear the word of God, chant the holy names of God, and remember the Lord in gratitude, and think of ways to serve Him as much as I can. And I tell you, I'm not the same person I was when I grew up down in OC. Definitely changed quite a bit. So I'll stop there. Getting dark. Got people come back from hiking. Bye. Probably look like I'm some Instagrammer because I got the tripod here. They're probably van life people. Anyways, Jai. All glories, Mother Tasha. All glories, religion of love. All glories, assembled devotees. All glories, Supreme Lord. Jai.